Hi, welcome back to part two of Sam's History Corner. I also have to make a comment that I realized when I was getting on here to record, I saw my last video and I'm wearing the exact same shirt that I wore in the last one. So please forgive me. I very much like this shirt. It is hotter than hell where I live, and she is a lovely, breathable silk girly. So I appreciate your patience with my fashion choices. Anyway, without further ado, today we are chatting. The information that I'm going to be telling you is based off of this book. It is A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. It is an incredible book. I would recommend it all day, every day. And this book is about the most badass woman I can think of right now, named Virginia Hall. Virginia is special for a laundry list of reasons. The first one being she essentially single-handedly established and maintained the French resistance during World War II. So France was occupied by Nazi Germany from June of 1940 until fall of 1944. Okay. So nasty, nasty years that we could get into. The Germans, the Nazis, were brutal in France. Absolutely brutal to the people. They were incredibly oppressive, violent, mass murderers, and that's probably putting it lightly. So, the predominant issue when France fell, this is important background information. When France fell, essentially Europe went dark for the Allies, Allies being Britain and America, Russia as well, but that's complicated. From that point, once France fell, Nazi Germany basically dominated from the border with Russia to France. Now, the other complicated thing, too, is about a year later, they ended up just bulldozing through Russia as well, getting within 60 miles of Moscow. So Russia was a little busy over there trying to push them out. So Britain and the United States were trying to figure out how to approach getting back onto mainland Europe. And what they realized is France was the key because France sits right below the English Channel and would be the easiest place to invade. Now, there are a million different other things going on at this time, but for today, we are going to be focusing on France because that is where Virginia is. So, a little bit of information on Virginia. She was born in Maryland. She was born in the United States. She had a very happy childhood, looked back on her life fondly, had a good relationship with her parents. She went to Harvard and Columbia, and she wanted a big life. She wanted to do something greater than what most women, unfortunately, felt compelled to do at the time, which was solely get married, have kids. Nothing wrong with that, but there just weren't choices back then. Those were the only choices for the majority of women. And Virginia wanted more than that. So she ended up going to study abroad in Europe. She ended up working at the American consulate in various European cities, and she really enjoyed being a government official. She would get really frustrated because of sexism and misogyny. She never got promoted the way she would have if she had been a guy. She was incredibly talented, incredibly intelligent, quick on her feet, and they didn't really care because she was a woman. So she stayed regardless of feeling disrespected because she felt that it was important work and she felt that it's what she wanted to do. So kudos right there. Now, something big happens to her in that while she is posted in Turkey in 1933, she's out shooting. Okay. She loved going hunting. She loved shooting. She was a badass in that way. While she is out, she is chasing a particular bird and she trips over a fence and ends up shooting herself in the foot. This foot ends up developing gangrene. The foot needs to be amputated. The gangrene eventually spreads up to her shin and below, I think it was her left leg. No, it was her right leg, was amputated from just below the knee down. So she ended up having a wooden, why can't I think of the word? She had a wooden prosthetic and it was named Cuthbert. And she still stayed in Europe. Her parents begged her to come home and she was like, no, I'm not interested. I'm staying here and doing my job. So she is in France when France falls to the Nazis. She escapes into Spain through the Pyrenees, which is in the south of France. The Pyrenees are the mountain range that sits between France and Spain. So while in Spain, she gets hooked up with the British military, and she ends up deciding to join this new organization they have called the SOE. And essentially, it is a group of guerrilla fighters who they are wanting to drop into France to see what information they can gain if they could build some type of an intelligence foothold. So Virginia is one of the first people dropped into France. And she spent the next 4 years ruining the lives of the Nazis behind the scenes. She single-handedly, of course, there were other people involved, but she single-handedly established the resistance foothold in France. She created all of the different cells and organizations, and she was the one that came up with all the ideas of how they passed information, the code names they used, how they moved, and guerrilla tactics, and all these incredible skills that she came up with from her own noggin. Now, of course, the fascinating thing that they talk about in the book as well is that many of the men tried to take credit for what she did, and she just ignored them. And she just kept doing her thing. And the funny thing is, the men were always the messiest ones. And the men, more often than not, were the ones that ended up getting caught. And multiple times, it was her that formulated how to rescue many of these people that got caught by the Gestapo. She had this massive prison break that sent the Gestapo over the edge because they were so mad. Okay? They were so mad, they called this woman the Limping Lady because of Cuthbert. And they would post pictures all over France, begging people to turn her in. And nobody ever did. And she was also really, really street smart. And there were multiple times where she almost would have gotten caught, and she was excellent at reading situations. And she was able to find a way to escape, to get out, to not go. And she was never caught. And there was a nightmare of a human being named Klaus Barbie. That is his last name, Barbie. His nickname was the Butcher of Lyon. He was a captain in the Gestapo, and he was the worst type of human that's ever lived, and ruined everybody's life in that area. That was his goal. That was his job. That's what he wanted to do. And he was quoted as saying, "I would give anything to get my hands on that limping Canadian bitch." May we all aspire to live our life that someone like Klaus would say that about us. Am I right, ladies? So eventually she leaves beginning in 1943. I think she's there for about 2.5 years. She leaves in 1943, and she ends up going back in before the D-Day invasion. So the D-Day invasion was June 6, 1944. Now, leading up to that, for about 6 months up to that, there was all of this prep work that was going on for the largest amphibious invasion that's ever happened, bar none. Now, what she did was she landed back in France after leaving for a little bit, after her cover was almost blown. And she helped establish all of the guerrilla warfare that went on in helping to prep for the invasion. So they blew up a bunch of railway lines. They sabotaged a bunch of manufacturing plants. They just made the Germans' lives so difficult, as they should. And eventually she helped pave the way for the success of the D-Day landings. So the reason I find this woman so impressive, and why I would really recommend you read her book, or the book about her, I should say, is because she didn't stop. She did not stop. She kept moving regardless. Even when her leg got cut off, she refused to see that as a reason why she should stop doing the things that she wanted to do. And the mental strength and grit and resilience that it took for her to do some of the things that she had to do is so admirable. And even there was one time where there was supposed to be a meeting of high-ranking members in the resistance. There was going to be about 15 of them at this meeting. And she had a really, really bad feeling about it. And the reason she had a bad feeling about it was because one of their informants had gone missing. And the concern was if they had been captured by the Gestapo, there was a really good chance that they could turn because the Gestapo tortured people into oblivion. Their torture tactics are truly horrific, and they get into it in the book. And so she was really worried that someone had turned. And all of these other men were like, no, they'd never do that. Well, she didn't go, and the men did, and they ended up getting caught. And all of them were sent to concentration camps, and they were killed. And I just think of how hopeless that would feel. Like, I think of the hopelessness of being up against a machine like the Gestapo or the Nazis, these people that had infiltrated everywhere. And she still showed up. She showed up and she fought tooth and nail, and she honed these insane skills that she had to be able to fight and do what she could. Now, what she did was truly extraordinary. And there's almost a part of us that hopes we never have to figure out how to be that intelligent and that capable in those circumstances. But I think it speaks to this idea of commitment to something, that you are committed to this ideal and this insane sense of hope and this belief that somehow it's going to work out, no matter how dark it is, that even if your life is on the line, what you are fighting for is worth the risk. And I just find that to be so overwhelming and powerful in these times that we're living in. Of course, we're not living in Nazi Germany. That's a different Sam's History Corner that maybe we'll get to. Some of the comparisons between what's happening today and Nazi Germany. But we haven't been asked to do something at that level yet. But I think a lot of us are feeling really concerned with the direction that things are going. And I think a lot of us are wanting to fight and show up, whether it's in our lives, whether it's in a larger way related to our community, related to our state, related to our country. And there's a quote at the start of the book that I wanted to read to you. And it is actually from Robert Kennedy, not RFK Jr., not him. I would not quote him in a serious tone. It's his dad, who was a much different, much more compelling human being. Robert F. Kennedy says, "It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls." I'm going to read that one more time. "It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls." I am so moved by that. And I think we forget when we focus on how large something feels. And I even tell my clients this when we're in session and they're trying to work through something or trying to figure something out. When you make something too big, it feels insurmountable. And sometimes what you have to do is you have to break it down into the tiniest pieces, and you just deal with one piece at a time. And you have to have faith that dealing with that one piece is getting you towards dealing with the bigger thing. And I think right now, with everything going on in the world and everything we each have going on in our individual lives, to spend some time focusing on one small thing, just like Virginia did, one problem at a time. And as you read through the book, that's how she focused on it. One problem at a time. She focused on solving one thing, then she moved on to the next. And I just think that that is so inspiring for us right now. And I wanted to leave you with that message that this woman with a wooden leg pissed off one of the worst members of the Gestapo and dedicated her life to eluding him. And she did. He never caught her. They never caught her. And I think that is so inspiring and so badass. And we need more of that energy in our own lives. So, what can you do? What is one small thing that you can do that will make you feel better? That's all you have to do right now. One small thing. Read this book. Read about Virginia. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Oh, I'm proud of you. You're doing better than you think you are. And I'll see you in the next one.